Run your fingers across your own palm. Actually do it. I'll wait. Nothing. It's a hand on a hand. Now picture someone else doing exactly that. Same speed, same pressure, same patch of skin. Something in you already braced. Same nerves, same signal going up the same arm. Your brain deletes one of them before you ever feel it. And the thing doing the deleting has an address, a timing window measured in milliseconds, and a failure mode that turns up in psychiatric wards. Hold on to that palm thing. It comes back. Okay, so let me make it make sense. First, there are two of these, and they got separate names back in 1897. G. Stanley Hall and Arthur Allen pointed out that a cobweb dragged across your skin and a hand digging into your ribs are not the same event. The feathery one they called nismesis. The heavy one, the one that makes you shriek, gargalesis. Remember that. The first proper test came from Lawrence Weisskranz at Oxford, 1971, 2 pages in Nature. Foot sole stroking, sometimes by the experimenter, sometimes by your own hand. Own hand, barely anything. Fine, you knew that. But then he took hold of the subject's hand and used it to stroke their own foot. Their hand, their skin doing the touching. They just weren't the one deciding. The tickle came partway back. So it isn't about whose fingers. It's about who gave the order, which you can't test with a hand. So in 1999, Sarah Jane Blakemore, Daniel Wolpert, and Chris Frith at University College London built something that could. 16 people, 2 robots. You move the arm of one with your left hand. The second has foam on the end, sitting above your right palm, copying your left hand. 0.5 Newton of pressure, twice a second, eyes shut throughout. When the copying is instant, you're tickling yourself, which is to say you're not. Then they started slipping in a delay. 100 milliseconds, 200, 300. 14 of the 16 said afterwards they never noticed a delay at all. The tickle came back anyway. It climbed at 100 milliseconds, climbed again at 200. And here's the line I keep coming back to. At 200, there was no significant difference between tickling yourself and letting the robot do it. 1/5 of a second. Push your own touch 1/5 of a second into the future, and your brain stops filing it as yours. So what's being canceled? The idea comes from eyes. Press gently on your eyeball through the lid, and the room appears to swim. Now swing your eyes across the same room deliberately, and it doesn't. Same motion on the retina. The difference is whether you send a motor command. So the proposal is that every time your brain sends a command to move, it keeps a copy and runs it through a model of your body to work out what the movement is about to feel like. The real sensation gets checked against that prediction. Whatever matches gets subtracted. What's left is the part the world caused. Tickle is the leftover. They think the prediction gets made in the cerebellum. 6 people in a scanner, and it went quieter when your movement produced a touch than when the same movement produced nothing. Like something in there spends its output canceling a signal. 6 people. That's the whole study. Right. This is where it stops being a party trick. In 1992, Chris Frith published a book with an unfashionable idea in it, that some of the strangest symptoms in psychiatry are one broken mechanism wearing different masks. Auditory hallucinations, hearing a voice that isn't there, and passivity experiences, sometimes called delusions of control, where a person feels their body is being operated by something else. A patient quoted in this literature since 1970 put it like this: "My fingers pick up the pen, but I don't control them. The force moved my lips. I began to speak. The words were made for me." Frith's proposal: if the system that tags your actions as yours goes down, your own inner speech arrives unlabeled and sounds like a stranger. Your arm moves and it doesn't feel like you did it, and there's a prediction buried in that. Those people should be able to tickle themselves. So in 2000, they went and looked. Royal Edinburgh Hospital, 56 people. Schizophrenia, bipolar, or depression, healthy controls. Then they threw out the diagnoses and resorted everyone by symptom. Hallucinations or passivity in the last 6 weeks, yes or no. Same foam, same rod. Rate it 0 to 10. Own hand, then the experimenters. Controls, 2.1 for their own hand, 2.6 for the experimenters. The gap you'd expect. Patients without those symptoms, 2.68 and 3.15. Same gap. Patients with hallucinations or delusions of control, 3.60 for their own hand, 3.63 for someone else's, the same number. The subtraction wasn't happening. And notice where the split fell. Not schizophrenia versus not schizophrenia. Symptom versus no symptom, straight across two different diagnoses. It held up elsewhere. In 2005, Suckwinder-Shergill ran a different task. No tickling in it. A machine presses on your left finger. You reproduce that force with your right. Everyone overshoots because your own pressure feels weaker than it is. Healthy people overshot by about 43%. Patients with schizophrenia, about 27. They were better at the task. Being bad at this is what a working brain looks like. In 2014, the same group scanned it, and the failure tracked hallucination severity. Now let me take it apart, because if I stop there, I've sold you something. Start small. The Edinburgh study had 15 people in the symptom group, and on the ticklish scale specifically, that group came out at p equals 0.06. That's a miss. The headline rests on counting how many people showed the normal pattern, and even that was only marginal across all three groups. Then it gets worse. In May 2025, Konstantina Kiltany published a paper in Science Advances about how little we actually know. She points out something that should have been obvious for 25 years. Every neuroimaging study in this literature used either forces and taps or light stimulation of the palm. The palm, the thing I made you do in the first 10 seconds. That's nismesis, the feather one. Nobody has ever put a person in a scanner and properly tickled them. The whole neuroscience of why you can't tickle yourself is built on a sensation that isn't the one we're asking about, and there's a shape problem underneath it. Attenuation is a dial. Things feel somewhat weaker, but ticklishness looks like a switch. Your own armpit isn't a bit less ticklish than someone else's hand. It's not ticklish at all. Dials don't usually explain switches. There's a third problem, also from 1999. Christine Harris and Nicholas Christenfeld blindfolded 35 students and told them they'd be tickled twice. Once by a person, once by a machine called Mechanical Meg. There was no machine. There was also no experimenter. A research assistant was hiding under a table doing all of it. Identical tickling, completely different beliefs about the source. Machine, 2.79. Person, 2.82. Nothing. They phoned 9 of them afterwards. Not one had suspected a thing. So the social framing may not be doing the work you'd assume. And now the thing I have to say plainly. Being able to tickle yourself does not mean you have a mental illness. It does not mean you're heading for one. That is a group average across a few dozen people. It is not a test, and nobody has ever been diagnosed with anything on the basis of it. The other reason to be relaxed is that this varies in ordinary people anyway. 2 separate studies in university students found self-tickling tracks a normal personality dimension continuously in people with nothing wrong with them. It's a dial everyone sits somewhere on, not a warning light. So, here's what's left. Nobody knows what tickling is for. Hall and Allen's guess in 1897 was that we're ticklish where we're vulnerable. Throat, ribs, soles, armpits. Lovely theory, and it has a hole in it. Your arm is extremely vulnerable. There's an artery in there you can die from. Your arm isn't ticklish. Darwin noticed in 1872 that the ticklish parts are the ones not commonly touched. He also said the mind has to be in a pleasurable condition first, and that you can't do it to yourself because the precise point to be touched must not be known. And here's the one that gets me. We assume tickling is fun because people laugh. In 2005, Harris asked 84 students straight out whether they enjoy being tickled. 36% said no. The facial coding showed tickle shares its expressions with pain, not with comedy. And genuine smiles, the eye-crinkling kind, showed up either way. The students who said they hated it produced slightly more of them. The laugh is not reporting what you think it's reporting. So here's where I'll leave you. We can tell you, to a fifth of a second, how your brain deletes the touch on your palm. We cannot tell you what happens when someone goes for your ribs. Nobody has looked. The mechanism is solved. Tickling isn't.